Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first session on Day 2 of India Food Forum 2019. You can always tell on the second day which people were out drinking late last night and which ones went to bed early. This is the group that went to bed early. The ones who were out drinking last night will show up in time for the afternoon sessions. But we do have a great session this morning, and it's one that's very dear to my heart as it happens. In part of our knowledge series, we're talking about building brands through touch, taste, smell, sight, and sound. The first thing we learn as children is shapes, colors, touch and feel. Sound comes next. We start to recognize objects. But what about taste? How do you develop that palate? How do you go from being able to nose a glass of wine being able to say which grape it was, which region and which year? How do you nose a whiskey and say whether it was a Highland, a Lowland, or an Islay? We've got a great panel with us that's going to be taking us through those sensory perceptions. And I'd like to call on stage Sumit Nair, Country Manager, India for Newlyweds Foods. Sudhir Tamde, Vice President Innovation at Burger King. Dinika Bhatia, founder and CEO, DRB Foods. Chef Rahul Kulkarni, VP Chiliad Percons. Chef Ashok Meena, Executive Chef at the ITC Fortune Select Exotica. Chef Rakhi Vaswani, Celebrity Chef and Culinary Expert. Kunal Yadav, Director of Food Service at McCain Foods. And Chef Barney Dharan, Director Culinary Griffith Foods, India and the Middle East. And to lead the conversation, we have Jaspal Singh Sabharwal, co-founder Tag Taste Foods. Jaspal?
Good morning. It's an honor to be here, and for me personally, it was great to kind of form a team and present a case on how to build a brand using all our 5 senses. So Amitabh Taneja, who's the founder of Images and a very old friend, wanted me to give a context in terms of how important this sensory framework is. So the way we've structured this presentation is that I'll give you a context, and then as we discuss specific sensory interventions, we will kind of call on some of our panel colleagues to share their experiences. Yeah, please. To share their experiences. So to avoid any overlap and duplicacy, I would be talking more about the packaged food brands, because we have a very deep bench of people who have excellence on the culinary side, the restaurant side, right? So in this panel, we have experts from fast food, we have entrepreneurs in the packaged food industry, we have very, very well-known chefs, we also have a nutritionist, right? So not wasting too much of your time, I'll give you a context on what we are going to be talking about today. So we'll talk about how food in India has evolved since we got independence. So if you look at the first phase of entrepreneurs that we had in India, so we were just kind of building India after independence, and the fear of food insecurity was very high on our mind. Bengal famine happened in 1920s, and a lot of people lost life. So much of our policy on the food side was focused on developing food security. So that's why 1950 to 1990, you would see formation of IFCO, formation of Amul, because our policymakers didn't want any sort of food insecurity leading to deaths as it happened in the case of famine of Bengal. So if you look at our first generation entrepreneurs, so whether it was Qualities or Natural Ice Cream or KC Das or Haldiram, so they weren't educated. They were just driven by wits and gumption and ended up creating fantastic brands. Most of these brands today, if they go to public markets, right, unfortunately, none of the brands shown here are public. But if they ever decide to go public, right, in near term, for example, Haldiram, their market cap would be in the range of 2 to 3 billion US dollars, right? So that's how we started in India. Look at the movies. So movies usually is a very good way of correlating what's happening in our society and the kind of movies being made. So most of our movies, in the first row we have movies that were being made in India, and in the second row we have movies which were being made elsewhere in the world. So most of our movies between 1950s and 1990 were based on food security. Roti Kapda Aur Makan, Mother India, Bawarchi, a Bengali movie called Ashni Sanket, which had famine of Bengal as the backdrop. You look at the scenario elsewhere, the rest of the world was celebrating food. Baker's Wife, right? Tampopo, Babette's Feast. Very, very different. Move forward. So 1990, as we know, was the start of liberalization in India. Right? Look at the your second phase of entrepreneurs. Look at where our chart is going. For the first time, agriculture as a sector started coming down. Services were moving up. Manufacturing was moving up. Look at the second generation entrepreneurs. Anjan Chatterjee, Sanjeev Kapoor, A.D. Singh, right? Sajid Bhai, who's no more, the founder of Barbecue Nation, Riaz Amlani. Sea change, right? Because most of them were, with formal education. IHMs were founded in 1950s, 60s. So we started seeing entrepreneurs from hospitality management institutes, and what fantastic brands they ended up, creating. Look at the movies. The complexion of our movies changed. So Ramji London Wale to Chini Kam to No Reservations. So we started watching Hollywood movies which were centered around food and chef. So in a way, we were catching up with the rest of the world. We started celebrating food, right? Come to the phase we are living in, 2011 onwards, maturity and renewal stage. Very different type of entrepreneurs. So if you look at this panel, so you have a mix of the second phase as well as third phase entrepreneurs come professionals. Who thought that two IIT graduates would end up doing chai ka business? You are from IIT, and so this is India, very vibrant. It took us some time to secure food security. That was important because catering for 1 billion plus people is not an easy task. Very, very easy for some people who are not familiar with the Indian context to criticize that India has been very, very slow. But if you look at the charts forward, interesting story. Look at our movies, Lunchbox, Stanley Ka Dabba. So in no way, we are lagging as far as celebrating food is concerned vis-a-vis the rest of the world, right? So slowly coming to our topic of the day. So somebody said, actually J.W. Marriott, anybody can make money in the food business as long as they have a good product, reasonable price, and a clean place, right? This was J.W. Marriott. But what's the state of our industry in India today? It's a tough industry. So the fact is that if you take casual dining, cafes, QSRs, roughly 40% outlets across India, they never make money, right? So attrition rate is very, very high. So there are outlets in the middle, which we call torso of a huge dinosaur. 35% of them kind of just about survive. There are only 25% outlets which kind of really deliver comfortable operative profitability, right? So if I go back, anyone can make money if you have good food on the table, reasonable price, and clean place. So somewhere we are going wrong, right? And that's where today's discussions are going to be about. So if we slowly move towards the sensory part, which is today's agenda, so most of you might have heard about Helen Keller. She was hugely disadvantaged, blind, mute, and couldn't hear, right? So the only two senses she had was touch and taste, right? She ended up not only doing her graduation degree from a very reputed university, but kind of guided the world that despite being so badly handicapped, you could still enjoy the life, right? So tribute to her. Let's look at the world. So we looked at the movies. Let's look at the world as to how world has been changing, right? This is our world last month in January. So one such conference like we are in today. So instead of giving stress balls or folders, etc., Lyft, which is one of internet-driven cab companies in the US, they handed over avocados to all their delegates, right? And the branding was done by the edible color. Move forward. This is KFC. Right? As we know, this is winter time in the US. They rolled out a limited edition fire log, which had aroma of KFC spices. And all that they produced was sold out in 2 days. KFC again. So they have candle now. This is, I think, last week. Sold out everything in less than 24 hours. Right? Again, this candle flame kind of give whoever is using it, you get the aroma of KFC spices. Move forward to some serious stuff. Pantone, as we know, they are the color custodians of the world, right? So they are also falling back on nature. So they feel that living coral is going to be the color of 2019. Let's see what happens in 2019, right? Move forward. So Consumer Electronic Show is one of America's shows where innovation in consumer entertainment electronics is showcased, right? Guess who got the best recognition this year? Impossible Burger in the field of electronics. So they are animal replacement-based company, wherein they've played with texture and other sensory elements to create vegetarian-driven range of products. So this is the kind of world we live in. MasterCard, although not an example from food, but when we come to a specific slide later on, we will come to this part. They removed MasterCard from their logo, right? This is last week. Something which I thought we must kind of acknowledge and also look at. I didn't know until 2 weeks ago that such a thing existed. So there is actually a World Institute of Slowness in Norway, right? So as we are like, trying to move fast, embracing technology like never before, there are people who are kind of researching on what it means to find your own pace. So it's a think tank funded by the government. So, technology, Consumer Electronics Show, things happening at a very, very fast pace, and Institute of Slowness, where sensory appreciation, finding your true self, balance, etc., are being talked about. Now we are really on to senses, how our senses have evolved. And they differ from culture to culture. They have their range, they have their reputation. There is folklore associated with the sensory elements, there's science associated with the sensory elements. So Western experts say, it's very easy for us Indians to brag about our own selves. So this is not me saying or some other fellow Indian saying. that there are only 3 countries in the world which have a long-standing history of integrating all our 5 senses with our culture and traditions. And those countries are Japan, Thailand, and India. So we are blessed to be born in a country where all our 5 senses, right, are integrated with our culture and traditions. And we'll hear more about that from our panel of experts. So before we get deeper, 2 changes that are kind of staring at us, happening as we speak, as we kind of go on with our businesses, is the emergence of, I would say, Generation Z. So we often talk about millennials, people born between 1980 to 2000, but we haven't yet started talking about Generation Z, right? So millennials are now parents. So someone who was born in 1980, right, today he or she is a parent, right? Whereas people born after 2000, so some of them became adults last year and some more would become adults this year. They are very different from their older sort of siblings. This is the first generation globally, right, which didn't grow up with Barbie dolls or Lego toys. Their first toy was their parents' smartphone, right? So they are very different. So what happens is, as human beings, we have habits, we have instincts. So habits are very easy to navigate through. So you have iPhone 6 today, iPhone 7 comes, you suddenly feel that my iPhone 6 is redundant, I need to go for iPhone 7. But instincts are ingrained. So this generation has instinct of everything fast, everything technology-centric. So when you have access of any particular thing, you crave for things that you didn't grow up with. So people of my generation, when technology came our way, we thought it was Star Trek version 2 for us, right? We embraced it, we kind of caught up with it. But if you look at this generation, all the data indicators are saying that this generation, Generation Z, right, won't go for artificial intelligence. Things change, things as they stand today, right? They like to cook, right? They like to travel, they like to have newer experiences, very different. So those of you who are on the business side, I would strongly urge you to look at this generation very, very sort of differently. There are 26 crore to 60 million such people in the Generation Z segment in India, right? The second change, rise of humanism. So, we always talk about experiences these days. So this is I converted it into an infographic, but this is a quote from Yuval Harari's book, Homo Deus. What are experiences? Sensation, emotions, and thoughts, right? That's where the whole thing is gravitating towards, whether we are talking about fashion or we are talking about food, anything, relationships. Now look at how some of the companies, very, very well-entrenched companies have used the sensory elements. So it's not that taste, sight, sound are applicable only to food. These things are pretty much applicable to everyone. So these are the ratings from a US-based company called Brand Sense, and this is how it was rated. Towards the end, when the presentations are over, I will show you a one-page case study about Singapore Airlines in terms of why they are rated the most leveraged sensory companies one of the most leveraged sensory companies in the world, right? So we have some food and beverage companies like Absolute Vodka, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Starbucks. So leading to senses, we are starting with sight. Sight is, people often say in FMCG, jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai. And with Instagram coming, the sight part has gone on to a completely different sort of platform, right? So as I said, I'll mostly be talking about packaged food, and we'll request some of our panel partners to kind of talk about their experiences in the restaurant space. If you look at these logos, it has taken centuries for these companies to kind of establish a very, very distinctive visual identity for themselves. They can't happen overnight. So it's not that I hire the best creative agency in the town and I am done on the visual part. So if you look at even Britannia and Parle, both these companies are more than 80, 85 years old, right? So Parle, I don't know what the logic was behind Pentagon in which the Parle name is inscripted. My guess is these are 5 senses, right? Coca-Cola, needless to say, one of the most recognized brands in the world. But in Europe, they kind of slipped a little. In Europe, red color is associated with Vodafone, not with Coke. Not many people know about it, but that's the fact. So once you've established the visual identity, nurturing it, holding it, becomes a very, very sort of important part. Kit Kat, right? This is an example from Japan. So Japan, Nestle Kit Kat, right, rolls out 35 to 40 new variants every year. To date, they have close to 370 variants. So how they play with wafer, the whole look, you have pink color chocolate, you have blue color chocolate. So they play with the appearances in a beautiful manner, so much so that an average Japanese thinks that Kit Kat is a Japanese company. So we will show you an excerpt from Britannia, Little Hearts, which is like, yeah.
If I should try to make you mine and get you going my way, I'd first start with giving you my heart, but I'm not sure what you'd say. While all the other boys try to play it cool, I'm not afraid to be your fool. So maybe just give
Britannia Little Hearts, the only hearts you should be breaking.
Oh, you know it's true. This heart was made for you.
So go on, break some hearts.
So, shape, the texture, appearance matter a lot. This is how good companies kind of invest in other things. So we'll play one more commercial from outside of India before we kind of request our panelists to share their views on appearances. Second commercial, please. So not a word is said about the product, and look at the strong messaging. So what I'm basically trying to highlight is that appearances are not just about the photo or video. There are lots of aspects attached with the appearance. Even you can, without even touching or tasting the product, you can feel the texture, anticipation builds up. So as long as the anticipation is positive, the whole equity of that product and brand kind of goes up in your eyes and mindset. So we will call upon Chef Ashok Meena to kind of share his views in terms of how, as a chef with ITC Fortune Hotel, which is at the cusp of casual and fine dining, he uses appearance to kind of differentiate his products and create exceptional experiences for their consumers, customers.
Good morning, all. Actually, I'm here to talk about the food side and the appearance. The food presentation and appearance is very important. It's as essential as the texture and the taste of the food. the way we present the food on a plate that tempts our eyes and make us taste the food. We see the many pictures on the Instagram. So I want to give one example for like in daily routine. When we see our room or our drawing room in a messy condition, and the similar when we see our room or bedroom when we set it. So it's a different, the same ingredients, but the result is a different. The similar goes with the food also. We put many component on a plate and it looks different. There are many things that affect the, like how we make sure our food is similar to Instagram photos, Facebook photos. So there are some basic things what we use, or what I use. The first thing is occasionally presentation. So we need to plan our food as per the occasion. As like a simple example, when we are catering a kids, so we need to garnish our plate such a like a funny things, maybe some Mickey Mouse, some smileys, basic things. So we have to go as per occasions. Second thing is timing. We have to make sure whatever the photos we see on the Instagram, that has to be the timing, that has to deliver to the guest also. The similar in the similar person in the similar presentation. So timing is very important. The food, your cooked food should not wait for the plate to come. So your garnish plate is supposed to be ready before the food comes. Third thing is the platters, the plates. What we choose, that has to be the perfect. What portion we are serving, and the size of the portion and the plate choose. What we choose. Garnishing also plays important role. Like without garnishing, the food looks like unpleasant, unappealing. Similar, if you put the garnish, like if a beef steak goes with the baked carrot or carrot au gratin, it's add contrast and the uh, very important. It plays very important role when we see a steak without garnish, without au gratin, without carrot au gratin, without any parsley leaves on it. So it looks like a different. It's not tempts our eyes. And I want to add one more thing. Whenever we serve the hot food, it's supposed to be hot. It's supposed to be served in the hot platter, not in a cold. Normally it happens. And the similarly goes with the cold food. When we serve the cold food, the temperature of the plate supposed to be as per the cold. So these are some basic fundamentals. So one question comes, how we make sure our food, when it looks good on photos or Instagram or look-wise, so how we make sure the food remains similarly with the taste. Is the taste also good? So there are some basic things, not too much. Like we have to take care of the basic things, like too much advanced preparation, such as like a garlic and onion. If we prepare the garlic onion in very advanced, so when we use the advanced garlic and onion in a sauce, in a soup, or any gravies, the taste disaster really. Second thing, we have to make sure our fats are fresh every time fresh. We need to reduce the exposure of our fats and the oils from too much light, and the fats in the proper temperature. Third, we should avoid the fats. Third thing is the basic thing, the use of the herbs. We have different herbs like rosemary, thyme, oregano. We should use them in the initial time when the dish is starting, and similarly with the parsley, basil, and cilantro when the food is just about to ready. So these are some basic things we need to take care of them, or making sure the food when looks on the Instagram, on the Facebook, and different channels. So it's a similar, the similarity comes with the presentation and with the taste. So these are some basic things I want to share.
Thank you. Thanks. So Dinika is a founder of DRB Foods. Her family runs India's, I would say, oldest dry fruit business. But she branched out on her own, giving a different twist to the dry fruits, the raw dry fruits that her family has been selling for the past 85 years or more.
So family's been in the business since 1887.
1887, yeah. But she's given a different twist. And appearance matters a lot, appearance and texture as per me. But let's hear from her.
Yeah, absolutely. I think appearance and all the five senses matter a lot while we are developing new products. And Nutty Gritties over the years has been known for the innovation that we do. And the question that we get asked most often from people who know the brand and have been our regular customers is, what is the flavor? What is the next flavor that you're doing? So we give a lot of importance to the flavor, and while developing that, we use this process called C8T, which is complementary appeal, aroma, and taste. So while that is important to create a balance of flavor, I think appearance is very, very important as well, because that's the first thing that a consumer looks at before he or she will even consume the product. So if it doesn't look good, they won't pick up the product itself. And for a packaged brand like ours, the packaging comes first as well. So how the packaging looks, if we have a product picture on the packaging, how that looks, because that's the first thing a customer will look at before picking up the product. So while we do our photo shoot and the packaging design, a balance of colors and even the font, we have to look into the nitty-gritty of developing the packaging, the brand, the flavor, and even the colors. You know, you mentioned in your presentation that coral is the color of the season, color of the year. So how things are picking up in this way, and even in terms of packaging, what color would work, what's an appealing color for a customer to pick up from a shelf, what will stand out. So that's about the appearance of the packaged food.
Hi, first of all, good morning to everyone here. I wanted to, I'm Chef Rakhi Vaswani, founder of Palette Culinary Academy and Studio. I chose to, be a little in the forefront with the culinary, the training and teaching aspect. But yes, all these tastes, flavors, senses, all these features do apply to us. The first thing I'd like to say, I don't know how many of you all will agree with me, is when you showed us that ad, I wish you'd given us those kisses to taste and we would have shown you all the senses right here live action.
Absolutely.
Do you all agree with me, panelists?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you should have done that.
Absolutely.
Because that really got us enticing, and we said like, we wanted one of that in our mouth, and we would have like got, yes, and we would have given you that same ad experience, I guess, right?
Right.
So yeah, with food, it's something we want to work as a deal where everything goes hand in hand, the taste, the appearance, the smell. We literally first see with our eyes, so that's where the packaging comes in, because how you present, how Chef said, how you present the food, even when we're teaching our students going forward in the industry, they are doing the UK culinary programs, level 2 award and certificates and diploma from CTH, as well as City and Guilds. But the first thing that goes out, whatever they've learned, whether it's French, whether it's American, whether it's a cookie or it's a cake, the presentation is what we look at. So everything goes over the mood boards, the lighting, the cameras. We invest in all of that because this is the way forward. So we feel even at the training, it's so important for them as a chef now. I think all chefs over here will agree that first, we only knew how to make the food look good, present it, and then wait for the guests to say, okay, it's fabulous. Come up with their senses and say like, wow, and, feel those experiences. But now I think a chef needs to know it all. We really need to know how to make that food look Instagrammable first. That's so important. That's the first marketing tool I think we need to, it's added on top of the list. So that really makes a lot of a difference. And we see with our eyes first, then the smell, the aroma comes in, and then it's the taste. So yes, we can play all these gimmicks and make the food look really nice, but it does boil down to the taste. So the taste has to be bang on. That's what I would like to see. But
We'll call you back again when
Yes,
we come
yes,
to
yes.
taste.
Thank you so much.
I thought it was important to get your feed on appearance. Thank you, Dinika, as well, and Chef Ashok. Moving on, the presentation back, please. So sound. Unfortunately, we do not have a sound expert here, sound like in the real sound term, but there is this old experiment which we call it Pavlovian experiment. So Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov conditioned his dog, dog and bone. So every time he used to kind of ring the bell, and repeated stimuli leads to response. So every time he used to ring the bell, he used to offer dog the bone. So one day he decided to ring the bell, right, and did not offer the bone to the dog, but dog still came running. So this is a very famous theory which is called stimulus response. So if you do good things over and over again, they get embedded in your whole brand architecture. So it's called stimulus response. So they say hearing is passive, right, and listening is active. So we all hear with our ears, we listen with our brains. So whenever you kind of build in a sound element in your product architecture, and I'll show you a couple of examples before we get on to people who really play with the sound in a very scientific and artsy manner. But bear it in mind that there is a difference between hearing and listening. So listening is something that we all need to focus on when it comes to food, otherwise as well. Play this Kellogg's commercial. So Kellogg's has been very carefully able to build taste and crunch. Crunch is sound. Listen to this.
Whatever you do, don't make a sound. Sorry, it's granola. Granola.
All new granola from Kellogg's Crunchy Nut. Glorious fruit and nuts with rolled baked oats. Trouble is, they taste too good.
So this is how, and it took 25 years for Kellogg's to build in the element of crunch with their taste and texture. And after that, there was no looking back for them. This is actually one very interesting ad, wherein this company came under pressure. They used to Heinz. So Heinz tomato ketchup always used to be in glass bottles, right? So they came under pressure because of viscosity. Tomato ketchup takes a lot of time coming out of, because you can't squeeze the glass. So they shifted to plastic. So there are countries where Heinz is available in both glass as well as plastic packaging, but this is very interesting commercial. Heinz, please. So, if you sometimes come under pressure to compromise on the sensory element, that's very, very critical to your product. It's very closely identified with your product. The learning is don't give it up. It worked very well for Heinz, still does, but they came under pressure because of competition, etc., and they lost that edge. This is one example from my former company, Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola, as you know, when it started, we only had glass bottles, and the glass had greenish tinge. It's called Georgia green tinge. So it's not like an ordinary glass. So as the competition kind of intensified, I was part of the team at that time. And in 96, 97 onwards, when Coke started its journey in India, we had green tinge bottles, right? So we came under cost pressure, so green tinge kind of vanished. So we had plain glass bottles, and bottle had a shape. It's called contour shape. And PET bottles in India were launched in 1996 World Cup, right? And when I left Coke in 2005, 83% business was glass bottles, 17% business was PET bottles and cans and one-way packages like fountain glass. Today, it's the other way around. 85% business is non-glass. Look at the way my former company, and I was also party to that crime, we took away the tactile advantage of brand Coca-Cola away from the consumers. The joy of holding a chilled bottle, contour shaped, Georgia green in color, as opposed to plastic or a paper cup, very, very different, very, very different. So these are, some of the attributes which are very, very critical to your brand's success. So before moving on, touch and texture, these are very, very important factors. I would call upon Dr. Tamne to talk about the sound and the texture kind of they play with. Dr. Tamne heads innovation and R&D for Burger King India. And before Burger King, he was instrumental in launching lots of products for KFC as well as McDonald's. So history of fast food in India is history of Dr. Tamne. So over to you, Dr. Tamne.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Well, I remember the days 5 years back when we started working for developing a menu for the Burger King. I'll straightway come to how we went through the experience on that. So obviously, when we talk about the Burger King, Whopper comes to the mind. And Whopper is the beef elsewhere in the world. And obviously, in India, beef is completely no-no. So we went back to the boards, looked upon, got the special permission to develop anything other than the beef as an exception. Good, till then the journey was easy. But when we talked with our Indian guests, what do they look after in the product? I know there is not a success formula, but what is their cravings or what they are looking for? We got the 3 words: spicy, juicy, and crunchy. So yes, it is easy to spell out, but then it was a difficult task, or rather how to get it converted into food and deliver that experience. So we strongly believe this experience is the one which some people define it as a craving, some people linger with it, and then that is the factor which makes them visit us very often. So coming back to the story of Whopper in India, for the first time we developed a fried, crunchy vegetable patty which went into the Whopper, veg Whopper. And in fact, this is the first country, India is the first country which has the veg Whopper, which was a crunchier Whopper. It was really successful experiment. People from even US visited to study and understand what is that is making the magic. Learning from the experience, we went one step ahead. We started launching the limited time editions of Whoppers. And one of the most successful Whopper limited time edition is the Big Boss Whopper, which is on the shelf for last 3 years. We keep on changing every 2 months on that. Coming to this story of the Big Boss Whopper, we added the texture with chips. So the crunchiness of the chips coupled with the softness of the bun and juiciness of the patty worked very well. I, I really am happy, but that is what appealed our guest. And today it is one of the very successful product for us. Similarly, in the shakes, when we try to give the bite with either fruit bite or our cookie crumbles, that became an instant hit. So guests need something to chew upon, apart from the taste delivery, aroma delivery too. So being a QSR person, three things works for us: taste, aroma, and texture.
Yep. Aditi was a very, very, well-known nutritionist in Mumbai, based out of Mumbai. So she wanted to share her. So she brings a very different perspective to this forum. So we would request her to share her views on the touch part. Yeah, sure.
A warm good morning to everyone. I'm going to cover up the topic of touch. Let's get to the basic of touch. What is touch? It's the way you feel something. So all of you have papers on your desk, the sheets that are there, the white sheets. Take your fingertips and touch the paper. These two fingers, please. Everyone, what is the touch, or what do you experience when you touch the paper? Anyone would like to share? Okay, no one's willing to share. But let me give you a very clear idea about what is going on in people's head. So it's like, what if I say something and it turns out wrong? What if it's not that? So when you're talking about touch, it's basically how it feels. And everybody feels differently. Someone would just categorize the paper as smooth. Someone would say it's glossy. Someone would be more detailed. Okay, it's slightly smooth at the edges. It's sharp at the corners. And it's, has some depth when there is inscriptions on it. So touch is different for everybody. But we broadly categorize touch. When it comes to food, touch is right from growing till it comes on the plate. Touch is involved at every single stage. If you're a farmer, you would know that while you're growing your fruits and your plants, you actually touch the fruit, and most of the farmers would say, okay, ye ho gaya hai, ye pak gaya hai, ye nikal sakte hain. Touch is involved there. When you go grocery shopping, you actually choose what vegetables you take. Okay, now the hotels and the hospitals do have suppliers, but even the chefs sitting here would agree that out of the lot, when you're preparing a particular dish, out of that 1 kg of tomatoes, you would still choose a particular one because it feels in a particular way and it would go well in that gravy or the dish that you're making. That's touch. When we are talking about children, this touch plays a very, very important role. Why? Because they can associate food with the touch. When we are handling pediatric nutrition, you are actually we tell the parents, get your kids involved with the food. Let them feel the food. Let them, enjoy the touch, how it feels of the raw ingredients. That is when they can actually form a good bond with food. I'm not talking from the fast food perspective. I'm talking from the healthy food perspective. So yes, for kids, that touch plays an important role. In especially the special population. When I say special population, kids with spectrum disorders, ADHD, autism, touch is very, very crucial. For them, touch plays a very important role. How the food feels, how they can get different sensations when they are holding a food can get them involved into eating more. So that is where touch plays an important role. When you're serving a food, you are again playing an important role with touch. Now, Indian culture, as Sir said, is beautiful. We incorporate all five senses. We incorporate our hands, our fingers to eat. That is where you're touching the food. From one, we move to the next touch, and that touch is the mouth feel. These fingertips are super sensitive. You feel here. And then comes your lips and the mouth feel. Both of them play an important role when you're talking about food, food products, or brands. Your food should make an impact. Now, fine dining is moving from direct touch to cutlery touch. There is a cutlery involved, crockery involved. So that changes how the food would feel. So like Chef Ashok Meena said, you have to keep in mind what cutlery or crockery you're using. That would make a huge difference when you're serving the food. Today, there are some hotels who are taking into mind this aspect, but we need more of them getting involved with studying a little about gastrophysics and the psychology of food. That would actually play a bigger role. Again, when you are talking about the mouth feel, that's where you touch. When you understand it through your lips and your teeth, with every single bite, you understand whether it's crunchy, crispy. And we all know that once a taste is established to a particular thing, you'll always connect back to it because you make memories. Most of our happy memories involve food. Most of them. So your food has to make that impact. When you're talking about geriatric population, that's the older generation, or the people with denture problem, touch becomes very important. I'm talking from the medical perspective because today we have a lot of medical cases on rise. And somewhere I feel the food industry is not taking into consideration the growing population that is facing the medical issues. I deal with a lot of mental health patients. For them, touch and the texture, the mouthfeel matters a lot. That texture and the touch itself can make them eat, which matters to me because their health is important to me. And I would really appreciate if people from the food industry work a little more, taking into consideration all these factors and making some products which are more friendly, approachable, and people would be tempted, especially the special population. I'm sorry for taking a longer time, and thank you for patiently listening to me.
So human touch, very, very different perspective. As I mentioned, when it comes to food, we have to look at all the constituencies, our infants, geriatric food. So, in the US, there is this huge debate going on. If you calculate the wastages, the hospital food gets wasted a lot. Because world over, some people decided that the hospital food needs to be bland, right? A patient who's already kind of holed up in a room and suffering, on top of that, you give him bland food with one or two colors. So, you shouldn't be surprised as to why your wastages are so high. So world over, chefs are now working with nutrition experts and medical experts to make hospital food more interesting. And
I would like to add here.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why I chose to move out of hospitals. The people are already ill. They are in pain. They are suffering. They need something. And the best thing is human touch, the relatives who come in, and the food they are served. That's the only contact. You need to make it more appealing. When working in a hospital kitchen, I've had chefs who were so helpless. They wanted to do more for the patient. They were like, "Isme kuch bhi nahi hai, main nahi khaunga, unko kya milega?" And somewhere that balance needs to come. The nutritionists and the chefs need to work together and develop a system where the food is a little more for the patient, so you can use food for healing. So, yes.
Huge opportunity. Those of you who are looking at diversification avenues. Presentation back, please. Smell. So on smell, we have Chef Rahul, who would kind of share his aroma. But after we played the video, so smell, as opposed to our other senses, is very special sort of sense. We talked about the example of Helen Keller. She had just two senses, smell and touch, and she could do so much. So they say, if you don't have the ability to smell, you die very fast, very, very fast. It's a very special sense, very closely linked to, our experiences of the past. An average human being can smell in his lifetime up to 10,000 sort of types of aromas, 10,000, right? So, smell is something that you kind of experience and learn as your circumstances kind of, change from your early lifestyle to life stages, schools, colleges. So sometimes some aromas take you back to your mom's kitchen or your granny's dish. So that's the power of smell, right? It's one of the most complex senses. So those of you who are kind of not deeply into food, so what is flavor? So when you combine taste with aroma, right? Aroma is smell, you get flavor. So the aroma which you kind of sense through your nose is simple aroma. But when you kind of start chewing the food or try to salivate, our mouth temperature is usually 37 degrees. So when you chew the food, the molecules are broken, they release volatiles. So we have a retronasal path from the back of our tongue and neck, which talks to the nervous system. You have taste. So tastes are, globally if you see, tastes are only 5, right? India, we acknowledge astringency and pungency as Ayurveda tastes. So we have a framework of 7 sort of basic tastes. But when you combine that with aroma, you get flavor. So, most people say smokiness, taste tha. So smokiness is flavor, it's not taste. So smell is very, very important. And one industry segment that plays very well on aroma is the spirits and wine industry. So here is a clip from Lafroy.
Freud, and it's been made exactly the same way for the last 75 years or so, since Ian Hunter got the cask for his maturation in Bourbon County, the bourbon barrel. So with that, 10-year-old Lafroy, nice kind of sparkling gold colour. On the nose, huge smoke, very kind of seaweedy, medicinal, slight hint of sweetness there as well. Now on the taste, lovely full body coming through, surprising sweetness. A lot of the kind of hints of salt, a lot of spiciness coming through, and it stays lingering on the aftertaste as well. So that was a 10-year-old Lafroy.
So this industry is highly evolved when it comes to playing with aromas. And one of the trends that, people who are in the business of tracking trends talk about these days is aroma, right? Because eating out, the delivery culture, everything is at its peak. And that's when a normal consumer would become very, very discerning. So whether you are in packaged food or restaurant food, if aroma and aromatics, so aromatics is when you experience aroma inside your sort of mouth. So we were last year doing some sensory work for a very large retailer who entered India. And they were very clear that before they make a choice of their basmati rice, we should run blind sensory evaluation. So we took 5 brands. And I personally was very sort of displeased to see that all 5 brands, basmati brands, had no aroma. One particular brand had little aroma, which took me back to these companies. And I asked, I said, where is the aroma? And we were told that, rice, like wine and spirits, has an aging process. And since it's a very working capital intensive industry, so they now subject the paddy to cycles of steam and dry heat. So they age the rice in 7 hours, what it would normally take 8 to 9 months. So you can do all of that in 7 to 8 hours, right? Thereby saving a lot of working capital. But one thing you lose, which is aroma. So next time around when you have basmati rice being cooked and you don't smell aroma like what you used to experience when you were kids, you know who to blame. These are some of the opportunities. And if you look at the international market, so Pakistani rice has done far, far better than Indian rice on various sensory elements, whether it's Walmart, ADSA, Tesco, these chains, right? Because somehow in Pakistan, they decided not to resort to artificial aging process, right? So much for aroma. So not taking much of your time, we move to Chef Rahul, who would share his sort of experiences on the aroma side.
Thank you so much and good morning. I'm Rahul, Chef Rahul Kulkarni, representing Indiaretailing.com as a VP and corporate chef. As a chef, I'll speak personally as a chef today about aroma or smell is one of the key sensory for us. I believe aroma creates memories. I mean, just give you a small example to start with my childhood. When I was really young and small, I used to come home and my granny used to make butter at home. It's called ghee, that's what we call. And that's ghee for me. Whenever I smell ghee in market or in kitchen, I instantly connect to that. And if it is imprinted in my brain saying that if it connects and if it smells exactly the ghee which I had smelled when in my childhood, it is ghee for me. It just creates memories, is what does aroma does to your brain. Coming back to the culinary, where I can say all these companies listed, they are really working hard, always working hard to create that, the nostalgia of right from having a best brew of coffee to your baked products, These are really working hard every day, like chefs, what we do in kitchen, right from the sauces to make it right. If just giving an example, if pasta would be a different variation, everyone would think of if you visualize it. But if you smell it, it's going to be a same standard smell that everyone would, or aroma people would relate to. So getting that is right from your tadka to your pasta or your sauces or cheeses. What I've learned, and currently I'm working on a new concept for the new company I've joined, is aroma plays the biggest role in the industry. I'll just say a restaurant or fine dine or the bar concept. As the person comes in, he first sees visually, yes, but if the aroma is not right, he instantly, back of his mind, he says this place is not right and comfortable. That's what it is. So I am working on a mocktail and a cocktail menu or a bar menu where it comes to have right mix of herbs and spices with the alcohol infusions. I have learned myself last from 6 months. It has come up to a different level for me. So coming back to aroma, I would say these are memories which we derive and we carry on till we are alive. And yes, that's one of the biggest challenge to keep up with.
Thank you. So, they say foul smell is the best food safety measure, right? If you smell the food, it's bad, you don't touch it. So that's the power of aroma. So moving back to our last section, which is taste and flavor. Presentation, please. So taste. One company, as I said, I would stick to the packaged food. But in this case, I have taken a very interesting example of Colgate. So Colgate is one brand which has kind of combined the aroma and taste to its best advantage. That's like the unbeatable or unbeaten story so far, having combined taste and aroma to their fullest sort of advantage. So unlike aroma, taste has no system, no proof. What is tasty to me may not be tasty to you, right? So it's very, very complex. Understanding, conceptualizing, and then implementing that in the culinary sort of framework that you have, understanding your consumer that you are wanting to serve. Very, 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 very complex. So we'll kind of move on to our last advert. Very interesting, wherein this company highlights how important taste is. So if you look at Burger King's punchline, they say taste is king, right? How deeply that taste part is ingrained in their philosophy, you will get a sense of it in this very, very funny ad.
I suppose you think I'm going to do something nice for you. No, you have to give me 3 of your senses.
Yeah, right. Sense of touch?
Then you will not feel this. And
hearing.
Taste is king.
Boże mój.
So that's how they dramatize the importance of taste. So he gives up all the senses, including his eyesight, but not willing to give up on taste. So this is one of the most exciting part of our session and the concluding one. We move over to Chef. So we have 2 people wanting to talk on taste and flavor, Chef Raki and Barnidharan. So we start with Chef Raki. Barnidharan, okay.
Good morning to all. I'm going to have a different shift in the discussion whereby I'm going to say there's a very unique sense which is called as the chef's sense. Okay, and these are all that we've discussed one after the other. And on a more serious note, I want to just explain what that means. I've been an educator at the Oberoi School for 4 to 5 years, and I've been working in an international company called Griffith Foods, which innovates new products and flavors. So when my team of R&D scientists, chefs, come around the table and say, we need to create something, what do? Is we don't talk the sense or the taste. We talk emotions, we talk an experience. So one of these instances, the team was around the table and said, we need to create an Indonesian sambal as a seasoning. So I said, okay, let me take you back and share a story, which is a true life experience. You're in Bali, in the famous beach of Nusa Dua, the Jimbaran beach as they call it, with your Hawaii slippers in your hand and your shorts, and you're walking down, and the beach sand is touching your feet, so that's touch. You see a lot of shacks, and you see this array of seafood displayed, which is octopus and fish, and you touch and you feel, and I believe that the fish actually looks at you and winks at you, because it's so fresh. And then you have an old lady sitting there, grinding the sambal with the chili padi, the candle nuts, the ketchup anise, the fresh turmeric, the galangal, and your tongue starts salivating with the fresh bass lime. And then you go further down, you have the fire which is crackling, the wood and the charcoal, and you have the flint which is flying. On top, you have the fish which is actually getting grilled. And where do you eat? You walk past all this, and there are plastic tables on the beach with just plastic sheets. The waves are flowing by, and your feet gets washed with the seawater. And on the table, you have this beautiful range of grilled chili sambal, charcoal grilled seafood, and all you have is slices of pineapple, some boiled potato, a beer for the alcoholics, and an orange juice or a juice for the non-alcoholics. So what's the story behind this taste and the emotion and the experience? You eat the seafood, so spicy, so tasty, and if you can't bear it, you take a slice of pineapple and you bite into it so that it kind of cleanses your palate and soothes your palate. And by mistake, if you're a bad seafood eater and you get a piece of thorn in your throat, please take some boiled potato and gulp it down so you don't die. So this is what the team listens to around the table. So what are you taking them through is touch, sense, sight, feel, flavor, aroma, taste, and a way of life of food. And that's what I coin as the chef's sense, who doesn't look at food as individual components, but looks at it as a way of life. And when you're able to bring this as a message across to your team, as something which they can understand, you will see there is magic created in the products that you do for your brand and what you take across to the customers. That's all I had to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Chef Banidharan. Chef Raki.
Hi, good morning again. Yes, I agree with Chef, what he says. So I think we could sum it all together where we have all of them that go hand in hand. When Chef said he gave a story about ghee, I have a similar story where my Nana used to bring in ghee every Sunday. My Nani used to make ghee and I was just 7, 8 years old. And I kept saying that, doesn't Nana know that he should be bringing some toys for me rather than ghee? But my memory, and that ghee used to be pure, pristine, white, fresh, what we call organic. And now I still have that memory where I relate back to it. Coming back to my first memory, as a chef, I learned from home, and then I went on to Cordon Bleu, Tante Marie. But you first learn in the kitchen, in your home, and that was my first kitchen. And I could relate to a very simple story. As chefs, whatever we make, whether it's a Karao Prasad that I learned the first time, and how we take our the atta and we bhuno it really well for that aroma to come. That is what I was taught, that you need to roast this slowly. And I asked my mom, when do I know it's ready? And there was the color, there was the aroma, where I had roasted it to the perfect amount, the perfect time. And of course, there was this little thing she taught me, that whenever you do that, you always say Vaheguru, because you're doing it with all that love and passion. And then that tells you, that's the point, that it's bang on. And then when it's ready to eat, and when you're eating it, that's the taste. So at the end of it, the chef has put in all that effort, which my mom taught me, right from the start to the finish, where it all ends out. After the smell, the appearance, the aroma is the taste, which has to be bang on. Whether it's a roast chicken that I'd love to do for my Sunday brunch, I believe we need to get into the skin. I mean, that touch of marinating it yourself, creating those herbs, creating those spices, working with them, and then putting it on the table. We all know that we've got these amazing tastes, and the umami is the new one that's just come over. But so has even molecular food. Presentation has changed to the next level. But at the end of it, it all has to boil down to something, whether I want to make a foam, I want to make a caviar, the taste has to be bang on. Even if I'm using these modern techniques, all these companies here are working, whether it's nutrition-based, I think it's all correlated. They're all working together. When even Chef said that they're creating flavors with the Burger King, they're working the team together. So we're looking into all these things coming hand in hand, and then that's the final result, the taste, which really matters. So like I said, you give us the kisses, and there's the proof is in the pudding,
Well
so that's what it's all about.
Well said. We move on to our last 2 slides. So Singapore Airlines, and I'll make sure that you get more details on this particular bit. We have a full case study on Singapore Airlines. So the smell that you sense when you enter the aircraft, to the service design, the way they serve food, the whole table design, right? In a manner they kind of serve, they attend to you, everything is articulated. They in fact have a perfume which matches with the decor and the overall sort of environment, the energy in the cabin. It's called Stephen Floridian perfume, which is patented to Singapore Airlines. No wonder, despite not having direct sort of influence over taste, how well they manage all these 5 senses, and they are undoubtedly the best airlines in the space. So I'll call upon Kunal. He, along with his team members later today, I think at 11:30, 11:50, would be announcing a very, very interesting launch. We had the honor of working with Kunal and his team. He would prefer to speak when his session comes up, but this slide I just put together to kind of tell you that how well entrenched old companies who believe in 5 sort of senses, the rigor and vigor involved to get that part done. So this is the rigor and vigor involved when you deal with a product like French fries, right? So more on this you will hear when Kunal and his team come and present their new product to you. Kunal? Yeah.
So when we launch the product, we'll talk about the sensorial experience that we went through. But interestingly, French fries, sensory plays a very, very important role. You come to think of it, the final product that you have is, you wanted golden yellow in color, you wanted crisp on the outside, and you want mealy inside. But when actually working with the ingredient, it's actually potato. And potato is an agricultural product. And we work with 850 farmers in India to actually get the final product. And imagine the role that sensory plays, because when you're getting potatoes in different sizes and shapes, with different solid levels, you need a sensorial matrix to basically give you a standard product outside. So there are 17 sensorial checks that French fries go through before it is released in the market, both at the farm level as well as when we, after production, every batch goes through 17 sensorial checks around appearance, around taste, texture, smell. So it's not easy. And incorporating sensory into particularly agriculture-based companies is very, very critical to give you a great product. Thank you.
So you will get to, I guess, taste the product as well. So Chef Raki, he'll fill up the gap. So these are some of the references kind of I made use of to put all this together. But this session wouldn't have been successful if I didn't have the support. It wasn't rehearsed. So some of us met each other for the first time. So if there were sort of instances of lack of coordination, please forgive us. I hope to conduct a better sort of session with product interface. Sometimes in Delhi, we do that. And Tactaste, the company that we've recently founded, is all about sensory. It's all about access to chefs, access to experts. So even small startups, small farmers are able to use our services, like LinkedIn of food, but with product development at the center of it, not the jobs. Right? So day before yesterday, we did a short notice sort of sensory check for Purdue chicken. David, who's here from the US. So they are in the process of launching their what we in India call American chicken. So one leg piece is about 800 to 900 grams. So how do you find respectable and exciting space for that? So we are, taking this sensory exercise to not only ITCs and Taj and Oberoi's, but also street, street kebabs, casual dining restaurants like Pind Baluchi, newlyweds. That brings me to the end of the presentation. But before we end, I wanted all of you to kind of just listen to Sumit Nair, who heads up a company by the name Newlyweds. I will leave it to him to explain why they are called Newlyweds, but they made like a multi-billion-dollar business on the back of something as basic as breading, which is texture, right? So more on Newlyweds from Sumit Nair. It was a pleasure. I am sorry we exceeded our time, but
good morning, everyone. My name is Sumit Nair, and I represent Newlyweds Foods. I'm sure with all the presentation, you guys are already salivating. I'm already, Chef Bernie, your narration was very, very good. So as Jaspal said that we do breadings and breadcrumbs globally. It's a very simple product, but when it comes to the textural science, it plays a very, very important role from the consumer mind. And as a consumer, you can actually reject or accept a product by just looking at the texture of the product, just without even feeling it. So Newlyweds is a company from Chicago. We are in this business since 1932. And as Jaspal requested to give a little bit of story on why we call our company as Newlyweds Foods. So our entire business is actually started, by innovating on texture. So our founder owner has actually invented a product called ice cream cake roll. So imagine in 1932, someone getting an idea of mixing an ice cream, pumping it into a vanilla or a chocolate cake. So this was a novelty in 1932, and this is how our business started. And then in 70s, we moved into the frozen food breading categories. So without wasting too much on what Newlyweds is, I'm going to give you the real life examples how brands are using texture, in terms of improving their bottom line. I'm going to give you how we are doing and supporting these brands in terms of this particular area. And when it comes to India, where most of our businesses are inclining towards delivery formats, I'm sure everybody is definitely looking for improving the texture, retaining the texture for a longer period of time. Just to give you a little background on texture, before 2002, most of the scientists was ignoring the fact that texture has to do something with taste and flavor. But there were many studies which has happened after 2002 where they said that you cannot take texture away from taste and flavor, because texture definitely plays a very, very important role in giving you an entire experience. So I'm going to cover all these things very quickly, not giving you too much in terms of, because I have a little limited time on this. These are some questions which I wanted to put here. Everybody knows what is rheology. As a scientist, we all know that rheology is a combination of consistency and how the product flows. But what is psychorheology? Now, psychorheology is something because of which consumer either accept or reject a product. Consumer either likes or dislike a product. Many people, they don't like still water. Why is that so? Because those guys have a thing in terms of the carbonation, and then the other guys, they like plain water. So this is very specific example of psychorheology. If I have to give you a gummy candy, I'm sure everybody eat gummy candies. If I liquefy a gummy candy, you cannot eat that gummy candy because it becomes so sour and sweet. So texture plays a very, very important role in our overall acceptance. Why sour candy always comes with a sprinkled sugar on top of it? Because as a perception, we perceive rough food more sour. That's how they play with the texture. Another example is gelato. Gelato has less fat, it has more milk, but as compared to ice cream, it is more creamier. Why? Because people have played with the texture. It has lesser overrun in the product. This is one thing which scientists are actually exploiting, rather exploring, to make a healthier product more tasty. Imagine a gluten-free pasta. You take all the bads away in terms of the taste, and you try something so that pasta becomes more tasty. Kale chips. The shelf is now full of kale chips, but people don't generally buy it because it's not as tasty as potato chips. If I have to give you the baked chips and the fried chips with the same amount of fat, I'm sure 80% of our guys, people will pick the fried potato chips because of the texture. So I'm sure scientists are already working on it. I'm going to give you some more examples how they are doing it, in future. Just one example before I move to the next slide is there's a company called Unreal. It's a confectionery company, and everybody has heard of peanut butter cups. Now, peanut butter cups comes with a lot of calories. It has chocolate, it has a wafer on top of it. Now, this company, what they did, they thought rather than conventional way of reducing the calorie by adding artificial sweeteners, they thought let us work on the texture. Rather than creating one single layer of peanut butter cups, they thought that let us develop in multiple layers. What they did was they reduced 30% calories in that process and increased 60% protein, and without adding any artificial sweeteners, the company is now booming. Everybody is picking up Unreal peanut butter cups from the market, and it is coming with multiple layers. They've played with the texture. So I think this is a cue for all of us that texture can do wonders in our business, as we go further. Yeah, sure. I'm not going to put too much on this, but we have also learned in that process. In 70s, when we started making pancos and Japanese-style breadcrumbs, we virtually coated everything with that. But then we realized that every substrate has to be very unique in the process. So then panko was bigger hit in the shrimp coating. Whatever shrimp we are eating now is all coated with JBC, and we were the kind of industrial manufacturer for those products. We learned in this process. This is one example I wanted to give you, very, very relevant to all of us. One substrate, different coatings, and different results. Now, onion rings must be the most selling vegetable breaded product in US, but it has evolved over last, let's say, 40 years. When onion ring was available at 3 to 4 mm size, only one type of product was available. But as the size of the onion ring increased, companies like us gave them multiple options of creating, let's say, 100 or rather 50 different types of onion rings in the market. So we are all talking about senses. I'm going to give you two examples of how technology is playing a very important role in creating overall enhancement. This is a restaurant in Spain called Sublimotion. Their theme is that it's one single restaurant, 4 different photos. It's not 4 different restaurants. So when you're eating the food, depending on the course and the product you're eating, their entire theme keeps on changing. If you're eating an Oriental food, you have an Oriental theme around it. So this is how some of these celebrated chefs are working on it. I'm going to show you this video. So I think what Pizza Hut has done is basically they are trying to use all your 5 senses as a consumer before even food is served onto the table. Many more such things will come. So everybody was talking about the Instagram food. So 16, 17 was all about Instagram, the color, how the product was looking beautiful. But I think 17, 18, and 19 onwards will have all the crunchy and sound-related products coming in. I will skip this, but I'm going to give you a novelty mashup as an example. So there are different ways of how as a brand you can create texture in your product. So one example is novelty mashups. So one particular is pop in the flavor Taco Bell, which I wanted to share as an example. So this is a big hit in US where you're using a popping candy as a sprinkle, which just goes on your rolled taco. So, just an example of how you can create innovative texture. This is something where Newlyweds as a company is playing a very important role. All these products are in the market, and you will see a lot of these innovative breading systems be available even in India very soon. So this is one more example of how you can bring innovative texture to the product. I'm not going to cover this, but only one point, accept the unexpected. This is from Technomic and Innova. Why I'm stressing on this is again pushing us back to the drawing board, that how we can actually create this unexpected, and it is happening majorly because of changing the texture. And this brings me to the last slide. I know it was a little rush thing, but this is what you're going to see in future, how a bakeable breadcrumb systems can be as tasty as a fried system. How you can do multiple mashups to create innovative textured product. And finally, tastier health-based product without compromising on the overall taste. This is what we as a company is already working on. Thank you so much, guys. This was my last slide, and if you have any questions, we can definitely discuss. Thank you.